Hi everyone, I thought I'd do a video on my latest finished project, which as you will have seen in the title is a Jamma drive, which is, again, I guess nothing new. I'm not somebody who's an inventor, but I like to follow sort of guides, and if I've got the stuff, have a go at a project. So this is one of my spare Megadrive 2s, and that there is my Supergun. And what I've been seeing on the internet is people making, well, essentially they're called Jamma drives, which are Mega drives which are now Jamma compatible, so you can put them, you can play, I don't know, Sonic the Hedgehog or Zombies Ate My Neighbours on your arcade cabinet on a super big monitor, you know, with real arcade controls, and it's pretty awesome. And you don't get those games as arcade boards, so this gives you a whole extra library for your arcade system. So to my Mega Drive, well, what I've seen, sorry about the shakiness, a lot of people do with their Mega Drives is putting the Jamma edge sticking out the side of the case. As you see, you get like this edge that runs around, and they sort of clamp it between the two, and it sticks out the side, and then you put your Jamma connector on, which is all good for people with arcade machines, where this thing would sit inside the arcade machine and it wouldn't get seen. For me, who doesn't have an arcade machine, just an arcade shelf, a console shelf, sorry, I didn't want it to look as if it had this fingerboard sticking outside. They could get damaged on my shelf if I'm messing about getting something. So what I wanted to do was make it so it still looked completely stock, so it can sit on my shelf really, but when it comes to being needed, you take you undo something and you can connect it up. So what I did was I had another spare Mega Drive 2. I seem to have got a job lot of a few, and as you can see here, oh, if it will focus, there. This is your normal your normal Sega CD expansion port area, which are incredibly awkward and tough to undo. Anyway, on this side it's normally completely blank and solid. As you can see, there's a large expansion port now. There you go. It's a little rough, but I don't know, it's good enough for me. You can see now there are two expansion ports, and from say about here, it looks pretty stock to me. So what's lurking underneath this expansion port? Here we go. This is actually a lot easier to undo than the others. Is an edge connector. So now, when it comes to putting this into an arcade machine or on my Supergun, you put the Jamma edge connector on there, and as you can see, it still looks pretty stock. Also, a little thing I've been messing about with, I got a water slip decal and made myself a little Jamma drive thing there. In certain lights, say like that, it's pretty much exactly hidden, but you know, it's not a plastic case with a print on anymore, it's a water slip, so it's about as good as it's going to get. Still looks pretty sweet though, I think, from there. Also here is a little tail, so it can now be plugged into a Mega CD 1. For some reason I can't get my Mega CD 2 to power up with this. I have no idea why. The Mega CD 1 works though. So this is powered from the arcade power supply in there via the tail that plugs in. So the whole unit is then all powered from the Supergun. So I'll show you that in a minute. You'll see that you don't need an AV wire or power wire or even cable controllers anymore. It's just this unit. Game in the top. Arcade, that's your arcade machine essentially. An arcade stick with proper buttons, not the dull Mega Drive controls of normal. So let's see. I'll show you under the hood. Oh, hold on, and I'll unscrew. Here we go. As if by magic, I've unscrewed the case. Just so you can see, here is the new Jamma Edge cover, and this is the Mega CD cover. So again, it's all loaned, well not loaned, I cannibalised another case to get it to well, to steal its expansion port really. So it was a broken Mega Drive, so it didn't need the case in the end. It was a sacrifice well made. Also, I didn't point out, this up here is a 50 and 60 megahertz switch, and that's Japanese and English switch, so it will play UK PAL games and Japanese games. For some reason this one doesn't really like American games. I'm not sure why. I think it's just the region switch mod maybe doesn't work too hot with the version of motherboard that's in this, but it plays all my other games. I've only got 2 games that are American, which I can play on either of my other Mega Drives, which they work fine on. Okay, so here we go. I'll lift it up and we can see what's inside. Right, so here we go. There's the Jamma Edge, and this is the second player's controller. It's a Honeybee Mega Drive control pad. It's a 6-button pad, but it's the only other pad I had that was easily marked for me to tap the wires from. So it's only 3 buttons really, and that's it. What I found was with the other official Mega Drive controllers, they changed manufacturer and design, even through the Mark 1 pads. So I luckily had one Mark 1 pad that followed the guide and was marked up. All my others were different designs, so this was the only other pad I had that would work. So I've got to balance this case somehow. Oh, that's right, I have to hold it. And you see it sits, it's insulated, the bottom is, sits above the motherboard there. There's the wiring to the edges, and underneath this, underneath the board, is sandwiched Player 1's controller, which has wiring all coming from the side. Here you can see the tail, so ground 12 volts. I added these wires in to make it a bit longer so that it would actually reach round to the Mega CD's power port. Before I made it just a bit too short, but I think it's a lot neater now, and it sits nicer outside the case. Not much else to say. Oh, one thing, if you are doing a little tail and you cut the Mega Drive power supply cable, the power, the positive sort of wire in there, is the thick wire that isn't insulated. The other one is ground, and that's got a little wire covering around it. I thought it'd be the other way around. It just seemed obvious to me, but obviously wrong, because I wired it up the wrong way, plugged my Mega CD2 into it, blew the fuse. Thankfully blew the fuse. It works fine now, changed it. But just so you know, the 12 volt line in that cable is just the one that sits within the rubber cabling. It doesn't have an extra wire around it. Okay, oh, and a bit hard to see, this is a little wire here coming off my processor from an attempt to overclock this yesterday. I didn't have the soldering iron hot enough or something, pulled the solder pad up, and then in the same moment snapped the leg off the processor, and I was not very happy. But if that does ever happen, scratch away a bit of the plastic to get an area where the leg was attached exposed, get some solder on that sucker, and wire to, it's there printed there, says 10. You wire into that, and that's now working again. So it's a little fix if you do ever try to overclock it and it messes up. I'll probably overclock this again now I know it works, but not right now. I want to enjoy it, so I'm going to put this back together and then show you it working.